there is a little bit of homework. That's for you to take notes as we move along, okay? Because we're going to go over a lot of really neat stuff, and I want to make sure that you have a chance to remember it, and that way by writing it down, it reinforces it, and it gives you a chance to refer back to that as we finish up here, all right? Now, thank you guys so much for coming to tonight's presentation on arthritis. I'm Dr. John Winery, for those of you that don't know who I am. And this particular class, in order to get the information across to you, I need your permission to be straightforward. Because some of the stuff I'm going to tell you might be a little bit different than what you've heard. It might be a little bit different than things that you've been taught or understand about health in general. So in order to make sure I get the message across that we want to deliver, I'm just going to ask for your permission to kind of cut through some of the fluff and go straight forward. Is that okay with you guys? Mm-hmm. All right. Some of you might get a little like, well, I don't know about that. I'm not sure about that. But just listen with some open ears, take some really good notes as we go through this information. And the reason I want to make sure I get this across the way that it is because it's going to really have the opportunity to help somebody in this room. And one of three things are going to happen after tonight's performance. One, it's going to give you an opportunity to do something different for yourself. One, it's going to give you the opportunity to help change somebody else's health in your own life, your own family, for example. And the information that we're going to go over tonight has the opportunity to change even the health of the community overall, okay? So with that, we're going to talk about arthritis. Very, very common term. Now here's the fun parts. As we go through the information tonight, I want to get across to you that there are aspects of arthritis that are reversible. We can also find them treatable, and then also find it preventable. Because I've heard a lot of people say, well, it's just old age. It's going to happen. Joe, Bob, Susie, Ann, Smith, and everybody else in my family all has arthritis. I'm going to have arthritis. And there's some truth and some untruth to that, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. That's why I want to learn the facts. The very first page on your sheet, it has this nice big triangle. And I want you guys to see and understand what this triangle is talking about. It's talking about categorizing your needs. And now when I put this together, we all have, our body requires certain things. The main thing, the pinnacle of what our body needs is our nerve flow. And that's why it's all the way up at the top. Because how long can you last without nerve innervation? Nothing. Zero, right? If there's no nerve flow, right? If there's no nerve movement, if we're technically brain dead, if you will, there's no neurological transaction. So we can't last at all without that nervous system flow. Sure thing. Did you get the other one right there? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No problem. Hate for you guys to be doing this today. So nerve flow is the most important thing because it controls all the other organs of your body. Number two is oxygen. Now you could probably last, if you're an Olympic swimmer, for maybe about 3 to 5 minutes without air. I think you take that deep breath there. But all of us, we need oxygen. We need that oxygen for the blood flow in order to oxygenate all of our cells and get the proper nutrients back and forth, right? Then we go down to water balance. We need water. Our body is made up of 70% water. So we want to make sure that we have the proper amount of fluid in our body for everything to operate properly. And then if you ever look at the statistics, you could probably last about 3 to 5 days without water, tops, before you get dehydrated, right? And then nutrients. The old adage, you are what you eat, right? You want to make sure that we get the right types of food in our body to sustain our body, right? And you could probably last about a week on starvation, before you really start to break down the organs in our body. So that's where this categorizing our needs, our nerve innervation at the very top, oxygen, we want to make sure that we're breathing properly, water balance, because we're pretty much made up of water, we want to have the right fluid in our system, and then nutrients, the right kinds of food, okay? The next category we're going to talk about are the different types of arthritis, because they do fall into a lot of categories. A lot of people just think arthritis is arthritis is arthritis, it's the same whether Joe, Susie, or Billy has it. And that's not necessarily the case. We have degenerative or osteoarthritis. This is the type of arthritis that happens when our joints aren't functioning properly. There's extra wear and tear that happens on the joints, and it becomes a degenerative process that happens over time. There's also inflammatory arthritis. Now this is a very specific type of arthritis that's more of an autoimmune situation. Basically, it's our immune system not responding properly. And this is where our own immune system starts to attack our joints. And there's different types such as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and ankylosing spondylosis. So these different types are very specific, but they're inflammatory. In other words, by the body, the immune system attacking the joints, it causes the inflammation that is arthritis. Let me take a step back real quick. The technical definition for arthritis, if you break it up into its two sections, arthro and itis. Arthro means joint. Itis means inflammation. So when somebody says, I have arthritis, there's an inflammation of a joint. The different types determines why is that happening? What's the cause of the arthritis? So that's where we have the osteoarthritis, the inflammatory arthritises, and then there's also a metabolic arthritis. This is where we have gout, for example. Okay? So I want to talk about two of those real quick, the inflammatory and the metabolic. I want to talk about those first. All right? When we see somebody with inflammatory arthritis, this tends to affect the soft tissue swelling, okay, around the joint capsules itself. Let's talk about the autoimmune response. That's where it's attacking those soft tissues, causing the response to have more of that swelling occur. All right? Usually you see it systemic small joint involvement. So these are our knuckles, for example, or a smaller joint. And there's just symmetric, so it's affecting both sides. You don't usually see somebody who has rheumatoid arthritis with just their left hand. It typically will affect both hands, okay? And this is where your rheumatoid arthritis and your lupus are involved. There's also metabolic arthritis. And now, have you ever heard anybody say, oh, I got the gout? Yes. It's like an old guy, oh man, I got the gout. You always see him walk with a limp. Gout is a situation where because of our diet, what we're feeding, what nutrients we're putting into our body, there's an increase in uric acid levels. This comes from what's called a purine within our body. A lot of times you'll find this in rich foods. And I'll say rich foods because gout wasn't really ever heard of except for the royalty back in medieval Europe. Because the kings were able to eat red meat. And they were able to eat and drink wine and heavy, rich foods that had a lot of these purines in them. And that's when they would get this buildup of uric acid, and that's where it would deposit, usually in the big toe, might be the ankle, might be the knees, might be the hips, but typically we see it affect the feet the most, okay? And that's an example of gout. What I want to talk about with you a little bit more in detail, because this is something that we can take a different action step, and as a chiropractor, we address more squarely, is osteoarthritis, okay? Now I put up these two different pictures. You guys should have those right there in your note package. Do you see those two? Now these two different pictures, one is normal and one is exhibiting degeneration, okay? The one on the left is our textbook normal. And I want to explain a little bit of the anatomy. Is that okay with you guys? Kind of get a little bit into what we're looking at. Do you see how we've got these white squares through here? We've got all these individual squares, and it almost has like, we've got like a thumb sticking out the back, so it kind of looks like this, right? That's what our spine, the bones of our spine look like from the side. So this is a picture of our neck. And you can see up here, here's the jawline, for example. Can you guys see what I'm talking about there? Okay. So when we look at somebody from the side, we've got a nice flowing curve, right? You can see how all the joints line up at the back. You've got this portion all interlocks nicely. There's an even space between those joints. There's an even space here for the disc space, right? So all of that, that's our textbook normal. So the curve is in a nice healthy place and all the joints are lined up properly. Can you guys see that with me? Mm-hmm. Okay, now we're going to go over to this one that's exhibiting degeneration. Okay, you can even see from that, you can tell that, right? Let me show you, that's your pic. I knew I recognized it. Here's the key factors that I want you guys to identify. You can see similar structures, right? You can see how we've got the bone, right? You've got the fist and the thumb, right? So the thumb's coming out the back. But instead of everything lining up nice and pretty, do you see how it's jagged? How it's come back, right? You can see right through here where that disc should be, it's almost paper thin, right? That disc is taking more wear and tear over time. You can see in the front where it's almost got like this, it almost looks like a waterfall kind of happening. The body is laying down bone right here to try to stabilize. So basically what's happened is there's been an injury to this area between 4 and 5. Could have been a car accident, could have been a fall out of a tree, could have been somebody roughhousing with somebody else and they fell over. Whatever it was, it caused this joint to move backwards. And now because this area is unstable, the body is adapting. Your body, by the way, is extremely smart. Your body knows, okay, something's not moving right, we have to do something to change that. So it lays down bone. It stabilizes that area. That's what's happening right here. The problem is that builds up over time. If we don't get that corrected, then that body's going to keep laying down bone and eventually fuse that joint together. So this is an example of our osteoarthritis that's progressed. Okay? Any questions with that, guys? Make sense? Okay, good. So that's our degenerative or osteoarthritis. Now I kind of started with this, but I'm going to talk about how this process happens, this degenerative process that we just saw. We have abnormal joint stress, right? So I talked about there was an accident that brought that joint back. It came out of its proper position. And when that happens, it includes compressive forces in the joint. So it's an increase in the compressive forces, because your skull didn't lose weight. Right? Your brain all of a sudden, okay, well this joint's out of place, so we're not going to use as much force. All of a sudden, gravity is going to lighten for us because our joint's out of place. That's not going to happen. We're always fighting 9.82 meters per second squared. That's the force of gravity that's pulling on us all day long. And with the weight of our body, our joints are designed to hold that. But if a joint has abnormal joint stress, something's off, it's going to increase the amount of stress on that joint. Okay? That causes arthritic changes in the joint. That's where I was talking about the body laying down bone, right? When that happens, that obviously causes pain. All right, the body's laying down extra bone. It's going to not allow that joint to move as smoothly as it should, and that's where the pain comes in. And that causes immobilization. So now we've got that joint stuck, right? And then it can't move as well as it's supposed to, which causes thickening of the capsule or capsular tension. So basically around each one of our joints there's a joint capsule. It's the fluid around that. All of these different things are happening. It's causing that capsule to thicken and to swell, another form of the arthritis that we're talking about, and that leads to more of that abnormal joint pressure, increased stress on the joint. Can you see how it kind of becomes a circle that goes around? Mm-hmm. All right. Any questions with that? You guys are picking all this up. That's awesome.
Inflammatory arthritis when your joints rub against each other.
The inflammatory arthritis is more of an autoimmune disease. That's where the immune system of your body, what fights off any kind of colds and infections, it doesn't recognize something and it starts to go after your joints. So that's different than this. Does that make sense for you? That would be like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or things of that nature. Yeah, that's another bear all in itself. So, can I answer your question, guys? All right, very good. Okay, so this is talking about that cycle that happens. So, this is a little bit of a question. You guys see that checklist right there. So if you experience any of these, I want you to check it off on that list.
Go ahead, sit down.
Early morning stiffness. I get a lot of chuckles off of that one. All right. How about stiff after periods of rest? Okay, we feel that too. Pain that worsens with joint motions. I have pain, but then as I go to throw a baseball, it hurts even more, for example. Okay. Loss of function. Am I able to bend over and tie my shoes as easily as I used to? Oh boy, we have to talk to me. Local tenderness. For example, it's sore right here, I get it right in my knee here, it's in that specific spot. How about cracking joints or swelling of the soft tissues? got that too, yeah. In chiropractic, when I examine somebody's spine and I'm looking for a subluxation, one of the factors I'm looking for is that swelling of that joint capsule. I'll call it like a cotton ball or a bruised apple feeling. We can actually feel that in the joints of our spine. You could also probably feel that in the knees or the ankles or other weight-bearing joints that might be experiencing this osteoarthritis. So target sites is where I'm going to get into where does osteoarthritis go to? Where do we experience it the most? Our weight-bearing joints. Okay? So I talked about before about the joints are designed to support our body weight, right? So what supports our weight? We've got our hips, our knees, our feet, and our spine. Our spine is designed to hold all of our body weight, transfer that weight down through our hips, into our legs, down to our knees, and then down to our ankles. So ideally, if I keep everything balanced properly and I utilize my joints well, I can support the weight of my body against the force of gravity. Okay? Osteoarthritis, we talked about before, how it has that cycle, where if a joint isn't moving properly, has the swelling, increased joint stress, causes the pain, causes the fibrotic changes or the scar tissue that causes more of that swelling. That's what happens when I've got a misalignment somewhere and I'm leaning to one side. Okay, now if I'm leaning to one side, I'm putting more weight on this hip. I'm putting more weight on this knee. I'm putting more weight on this ankle. So now these joints are taking more stress over time. I have a friend of mine who's a chiropractor down closer to Philadelphia, and he was doing a bit of an experiment with some of his patients. And what he did is he got 2 scales, and he had the patient stand on 2 separate scales to see if they were leaning to one side or the other. And he was finding a good number of them were leaning dominantly to one side or the other. The interesting correlation he was finding how many of those people were now subjects or on the way to a hip replacement. They were just told, oh, well, hey, you know what, you gotta, if this keeps up, if this wear and tear keeps up, we're gonna have to replace that right hip pretty soon. When he got on the scales, they were putting an extra 10 to 15 pounds on their right side. And if you looked at their posture, the way that their hips were misaligned, the way that their spine was misaligned, everything was causing the weight to transfer over to that right side. So it's not just one day we wake up and all of a sudden, hey, I need to have a hip replacement, right? It's a process that comes on over years. So this is where I was talking before about preventative. And I'm going to get into it more in a little bit. But we want to make sure that we take active steps to keep ourselves healthy so that all of these joints function well. Does that make sense for you guys? Okay. So these are the target sites. Also our hands. Our hands are under a lot of activity. How many of you guys have never used your hands all day long? It's impossible, exactly. Every time you reach to pick up a fork to eat something, open a door, brush your teeth, comb your hair, you use your hands. So these are under a lot of activity. Not necessarily weight, it's not weight bearing like our hips and our knees, but it requires a lot of activity using our hands, and that's where the arthritis can affect there as well, okay? And these are some pretty pictures. Yes, sir?
Does the fact that if you're right hand or left hand, you have more strength in the hand that you use more frequently?
Yes.
Would that cause any type of imbalance?
Not statistically. I wouldn't say it causes, like, okay, if this dominantly, everybody who has right hand dominance, they're always using their right hand, they're going to get arthritis in their right hand. I don't see that enough to say yes. Mm-hmm. But I have seen people be affected more on a dominant hand. And it might not be every joint in the hand, but it might be one particular joint in their hand, depending on their activities. Do you guys ever develop calluses? I'm asking the wrong guy. but you know what I mean by like a callus, for example. All right. I'm going to use a personal example for you guys that don't have me as a particular patient. I use what's called an activator. It's an adjusting instrument. And the way I've been using that for the last 5 years since we started using that technique, I have the middle of the stylus go between these 2 fingers. I have calluses that have developed on the inside, right through here. So that's just because I'm rubbing against that. That's an example of my body adapting to a stress. Now, if you're right hand dominant and you're always using that hand, say like a carpenter who's always using that, he's using a 16-pound sledgehammer every time he's, building whatever he needs to build, that's putting more stress on those joints. So can it? Yes. Is it a direct correlation? Not necessarily. Did that answer your question? Okay. Great question. Thank you.
I'm going to lose my left hand.
Use your left hand. Yeah. When I was going to chiropractic school, one of the things they taught us to do, we're maybe first or second quarter in, they said start using your non-dominant hand to brush your teeth. Because when we adjust with our hands, we're using both hands. We have to be able to feel and use both hands in doing it. So they said start brushing with it was the weirdest thing in the world, by the way, brushing with your non-dominant hand, but it got easier as you do it. And it doesn't matter if you're 16 or 67. Okay? Just trying to use both sides. You do that, your brain's going to start making new connections. All right? So I encourage you guys to try to do things that cause you to become a little bit more ambidextrous. Now, you may not be able to sign your name with the opposite hand, but if you could just maybe feed yourself one meal out of the day, brush your teeth, try combing your hair, just something different to kind of mix it up and take some of the stress off of your dominant hand.
That'll make me lose about 5 pounds.
Yeah, right. You can't find my mouth all of a sudden. Where did it go? All right. So this is what I want to get into next, the degeneration cycle. Now that's on the next page, and I want you guys to follow along with me through this flow chart, okay? So, first off, we have our decreased joint motion. Okay, this is where a subluxation is a perfect example. By a show of hands, does everybody here know what a subluxation is? Don't be afraid. Choose to know. Okay, I'll define it for you guys. A subluxation is when a joint in the spine moves out of its proper position and it puts pressure on a nerve. Okay, so it's basically, instead of our joints lining up exactly where they should be, they've turned a certain way, or they're tilting, or they've moved backwards. So the joint is not exactly where it should be. This could happen in our spine, it could happen in our shoulder, it could happen in our hips, our knees. Somehow the joint isn't lining up exactly like it should, and that's causing decreased joint motion. It gets stuck in a certain position, and now it won't move like it's supposed to, okay? So a subluxation is an example of that. When that happens, we have increased pressure and stress on the discs and the bones. The disc is particularly in the spine itself. So if we have a misalignment in the spine, now we have increased pressure, increased stress on that joint. I was saying before about how the spine supports the weight of our body, and then we transfer that weight down to our legs, to our feet. Right? So if we have a change in that position, that joint has to take more of that weight. Does that make sense for you guys? All right. So then, as that happens, that ends up destroying the cartilage and the disc. Okay, so now we've got a change in that pressure. We've got a change in that position. We have an increase in that pressure. There's more weight on that joint, and now the body has to adapt. This is where the disc itself takes that pressure. You probably have heard people say, oh, I blew out a disc, right? Chances are there was a couple things leading up to that point where that disc was blown out or ruptured, all right? But it destroys that cartilage, it destroys the joint. People who have a lot of knee issues, their cartilage has gone in their knees, that's part of the degenerative process because those joints weren't lining up exactly like they should have for a period of time, okay? And then fibrosis and bone degeneration. Fibrosis is scar tissue. So the body is saying something's wrong, something's off, we have to build, we have to restructure this. Because your body is always changing, it's always taking care of you. An easy example, how many of you guys have cut your fingernails in the last 5 years? Okay, everybody's cut their fingernails, right? Our fingernails are constantly growing. Our hair is constantly growing, it's constantly regenerating. Except for you. But that's an example, if you will, of your body constantly doing something, constantly regenerating, right? So your body is going to adapt to that stress. It's going to change. It's going to try to increase that swelling or lay down that scar tissue to try to protect itself. But what ends up happening, because we've got that joint out of place, that scar tissue continues to build, decreases the motion. And then we have more pressure. Scar tissue continues to build. You see how it becomes a cycle and it kind of goes around like that? Okay. Any questions with that, guys? All right. So now, the degeneration results in the inflammation pain, the deformity of the joints, reduced range of motion, like we said, because it becomes a cycle over time, and then uneven joint surfaces. This is where we've got spurring happening, and there's more of the joint is starting to build up on this side because the body's trying to adapt, and it's wearing away on this side because we've got that increased pressure over there. All right? So those are the results of that degenerative or osteoarthritis situation. Okay? And that's a picture of our lower spine. So this would be nice and healthy, right? We've got a disc space through there, we've got the joints lined up. But if we've got those misalignments, that causes all that wear and tear to happen in there. Okay? Now this is a question I get a lot. Okay? They say, Doc, listen, I'm 67 years old. My dad had arthritis. My granddad had arthritis. Billy Bob Joe, great-great-granddad back in the Civil War, he had arthritis. Everybody in my family's had arthritis. It's just going to happen, right? It's just old age. I'm at a certain point in my life where it's just going to happen. I understand where people are coming from. But if you were to look at a picture of your spine, and if every single joint was at the exact same level of wear and tear, I would say yes, that is old age. But here's the interesting thing. When we look at this, joints are designed for use. All of our joints are designed to be utilized, okay? If properly maintained, joints should show no sign of degeneration until 125 years of use. All right, so you guys, you're like in your midlife crisis. All right? You've got a long way to go with these joints. All right? Age is not a factor of breakdown. When those joints get out of their proper position, that's when we have that breakdown occur. Okay? That's an eye-opening factor. That's a long time. If we take care of our bodies, and the more we know, the more we take care of ourselves, the longer we're living.
There's a chance we could live to 125 years?
There is a chance.
Really?
There's a chance. Dr. correct me if I'm misquoting this, but the Bible says 70 plus 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so going back biblical times in the Old Testament, they're saying that the body should last without any problem 70 years. Okay? And now this is when we don't have the understanding of nutrition and water and clean eating and what kind of microbes and bacteria are out there that can affect our body. With this information, we should only live longer. I'm going to have another talk about why this generation that's living now is a shorter lifespan than you guys, but that's another talk for another time. All right? But we should be able to live to that period of time. Our joints are designed to make it to 125 years. If we have a lifestyle that abuses that body and doesn't allow it to take care of itself, that's where we have a breakdown. Okay? That's why I put this picture up here, talking before about the hip replacement. A lot of people say, hey, well, I'm hitting retirement age, it's time for me to get a hip replacement, and then 10 years later I'll get the other hip replaced, and then I'll get this knee, and then that shoulder. If we take care of our bodies, it is designed to last at 125 years. Okay? So, as a chiropractor, when we're looking at what do we need to do, how can we work with, how can we treat osteoarthritis, the first thing is we want to stop the progression. All right? Because we talked before about how it's that cycle. Right? We want to make sure that we stop it from going any further. We want to stabilize that joint. Right? Next, we want to make sure that we enhance the repair process. I mentioned before about your hair is always growing, your fingernails are always growing, your body's always adapting. There is a brand new you every 7 years. My wife is still waiting. But there's a brand new you. Brand new you. Your body is always rebuilding and taking care of itself, right? This bone right here in your thigh takes the longest to regenerate. This is what takes 7 years for it to grow completely new. But all aspects of your body are constantly rebuilding, constantly regenerating. This is why people that all of a sudden take up a weightlifting program in their 70s look better at 90 than they did at 50. Okay? Because it's giving your body is constantly rebuilding itself. You give it the nutrients that it needs, you give it the exercise that it requires, you keep those joints healthy, you can enhance the repair process and even reverse the process, depending on how severe it's gone. you know what, if you're going from a phase 3 to a phase 2, that's reversing the process. That's not continuing in that forward direction, okay? So the first thing, if we're going through that cycle, first thing we want to do is stop that cycle. And we want to enhance the healing, and if possible, even reverse what's going on, okay? So those are the goals. Now, a lot of people say, well, I feel this way. It's hurt, it's sore. I just don't want to feel like this anymore. And I get that a lot as a chiropractor. Let me just stop the pain and I'll be okay. I want to get through my day-to-day activities. Now, what's the cost of that? What is that doing to your body overall? NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, okay? These drugs are, that's what they do. They decrease the inflammation process. A lot of people say, okay, well, if I have arthritis, there's an inflammation, I want to take something to decrease the inflammation, and I'll be okay. But then we still talk about how that's a cycle, right? So it's still going to come back. We take something, it might decrease or suppress the symptoms, what we're feeling, but it's not stopping the process, okay? They actually may accelerate arthritis and confuse the body's natural alert system for safety, all right? It would confuse your own body, the Incense, because if your pain, when your body registers pain and it feels pain in any way, that's like the check engine light in your car coming on, okay? When your check engine light comes on, your car is telling you, hey, something's wrong, check it out. If you have some kind of pain, your body's saying, hey, something's wrong, check it out, all right? When we're taking stuff to suppress the pain, it's like taking duct tape out of our glove compartment and putting it over our check engine light. Now, how many of you would do that if you were driving home tonight? Nobody. You know what ends up happening when you do that? You crack the gasket in your car when you just drive to the Francis Marion State Forest in South Carolina and you're 12 hours from home. I didn't put duct tape over my check engine light, but I kept checking it out. I went to this guy, well, it's this fuse. I went to that guy, well, it's that spark plug. I went to this guy, no, it's just overheating, put some more coolant in it. I went to about 3 or 4 different garages trying to find the reason for the symptoms. Nobody gave me the reason. And it wasn't until I was driving from a wedding, literally, I'm in South Carolina, trying to get back to school in South Carolina. I just drove through this huge state forest where there was nothing. I came to the crossroads of 2 highways, and my engine started smoking. I was lucky I stopped there. Well, my car decided it's not going to stop there. But I was at least able to get back home. Long story short, I had to buy a brand new engine because I hadn't paid off the car yet. All right, do you see how this added up? Because I wasn't finding the solution to the problem. I was just trying to cover it up. People were just trying to give me an NSAID to cover up the symptom. Okay? And this is where an example of, you know, if you find a problem, you address it and take care of it, you can save yourself from an $80,000 to $125,000 back surgery. That might have some success. All right? So, high doses of NSAIDs actually harm the intestinal tract. There was actually a study done, it wasn't a study, there was an individual football player who, taking NSAIDs for an ankle sprain, killed it, well, he didn't kill it, he destroyed his kidneys basically, and now he lost his chance of playing in the NFL. But it was okay because he was in high school, he hurt his ankle, you want to make sure you can keep playing, he played through college, still with a sore ankle. Just take 2 of those before practice, it'll be okay. He suppressed the symptoms, end up damaging his body in the long run, okay? And it actually may result in ulcers themselves in the digestive tract. So I say this because I know a lot of people just say, well, I just take 2 of these and I'm okay. But then you start off with 2 of these, and you take 2 of those, and then take 6 of this guy, and then you get the prescribed one, and then by the time you actually go to the MD, and the MD says, well, you've got osteoarthritis, it's in stage 3, you're not quite a candidate for A, B, and C surgery, but we're going to give you this high dose of painkillers because you're in pain, you want to suppress the pain. By the way, we still have that cycle going on, right? When all of that happens, our body is adapted to all of those suppressants, and we still haven't addressed the cause of what's going on, okay? Now this is all referenced from these different gentlemen right through here. Digestive tract, keep that healthy, right? We want to make sure we're eating good food. So we want to make sure that we treat the cause of disease. Treat the cause of the problem. What's going on? Address the cause. You remove the cause, the symptoms will go away. All right? two things we want to make sure that we address when we're treating the cause of what's going on in our joints. We want to make sure that we address the nutrition. Okay, this is going to enhance the repair process of the cartilage. All right, we talked about before how those joints, the swelling that happens, how that breaks down over time, the scar tissue in there. Your body wants to clean that up if it's given the proper nutrition. And then physical stressors. All right, we want to make sure that we take care of our body physically the right way. So different stressors are our posture, or exercise, how we sit, how we stand, how we carry something, how we move, how we do our exercise day in and day out, or lack thereof, for example. So, reversing the process. I'm moving too fast for you guys? Are you taking the notes that you want to? Okay, good. A lot of times people think, okay, well, I'm this far. You want to listen? Good. A lot of people are like, well, I'm already this far, or it's been going on for this long. How much can I reverse the process? And there was a study done in 1983 from the Journal of Bone and Joint Surgery that said the nucleus of the disc, so we're talking specifically the spine, the very nucleus, the jelly part in the middle, actually can retain its ability to regenerate within 6 months. So in that 6-month time frame, it can actually regenerate that nucleus. So after a specific injury to an area, it still has, and that's just the nucleus. That's not talking about the fibers that are all wrapped around that nucleus. But somebody might say, oh, I blew out a disc, I have to have surgery. If you take care of that properly, you might be able to retain and regenerate and heal that disc within that 6-month time frame. Alteration of biomechanical factors proven to reverse osteoarthritis in the knee. This was from the International Society of Surgery, Orthopedics, and Rheumatology in 1969. So this is not something that's new. And it's amazing how a lot of times the older the stuff, the better it is. You know, with the research, we always want cutting-edge research. And then a lot of times we find out stuff that we've been told years ago we should be doing. Okay? But this is pretty much saying that if there's an injury to the knee that occurs, if we make sure that we change how that knee moves back to the way it's supposed to be, that knee can regenerate and heal. The key is taking those steps, taking those proper avenues, the proper paths to get that joint healthy again is what we need to do. Enhancing the repair. This is where I was talking about nutrition a moment ago, right? So glucosamine, and then cartilage extract. This is where you got your chondroitin sulfate and shark cartilage. These are great nutrients. They're found naturally. They're not made in a factory. They're not made in a laboratory. All right, they're naturally occurring within the body, and they help to lubricate and protect the joint capsule. I said before, when that joint is out of place, it increases the force on those joints. Those joints will swell. That's where the arthritis happens. If we take this glucosamine and chondroitin, it's been found to help decrease that inflammation, enhance the healing and the repair process, and as I said, enhancing the repair. Also, vitamins C and E are very good in helping with that rebuilding of the joint capsule, decreasing that inflammation. A multivitamin is also very, very important. We want to make sure that we get the right nutrients for our body overall. This is not just for osteoarthritis, but we want to make sure that we get the nutrients that our body needs. If we have the ideal perfect diet, we can get all of our nutrients from our diet. But quite frankly, we want to make sure we get it one way or another. This is where a good, healthy, one-a-day multivitamin is very helpful. And then antioxidants. And now I'm going to give Dr. Lou a quick second here to talk about this as far as the food is concerned. Before Cindy and Mary came around, they were passing out the different fruits and such for you. All right? Dr. Lou, did you want to take a second to kind of talk about these a little bit?
So we got a few things out here, but when you walked in, I'm sorry, it's turned around like this. But when you first came in, you saw there was like a tray full of stuff over here. Just some of the things that Dr. John was just talking about. Water, I mean, is really important. You know, you have to stay hydrated. Your joints have to stay hydrated. I've had a chance to see my patients over the last 30-some years actually dry up and die. You know, and because they rarely would they drink water. They would have coffee or tea or soda, juice. Once when it's not, you know, we need to hydrate. That doesn't hydrate your body. It actually is a diuretic. Some of the stuff that they're drinking, like coffee and tea. And so they're drying up. So water is really important. Then nutrients to help, natural nutrients that will help bring down inflammation. a multiple vitamin. Okay, who takes a multiple vitamin? Just put your hands up. Okay, so this is about a quarter of us, right? A good multiple vitamin helps to bring down inflammation. It's a natural anti-inflammatory. You can buy multiple vitamins anywhere. You know, I got mine up at Sam's Club. There's Vitamin World. There's a new vitamin store by the Arena Hub. You can get them online. You know, so a good multiple vitamin. As we get older, CoQ10 is another nutrient that people are taking. Your body creates CoQ10, but as we get older, it doesn't create as much as it used to. So that's another great supplement, especially if you're taking statin drugs, which I hope you're not involved with that too much. But statin drugs deplete the amount of CoQ10 in our bodies, so you definitely have to replace that. So CoQ10. Then magnesium and calcium. We have the supplements in bottles over there. You can take a look at the chondroitin and the glucosamine that Dr. John's talking about. I remember back in the 80s when we first started practice, they were just starting to give animals that for arthritis. The dogs were having problems with their joints. And what it is the chondroitin and the glucosamine. The chondroitin is beef cartilage. A lot of women used to take it in Knox gelatin for their hair, remember, and for their nails. They used to stir it up in orange juice, right, make it stronger. That was cartilage. So now they started giving that, they isolated it and started giving it to the animals, and they were getting, their arthritis were really being alleviated. And so that's when that all started with bone support or joint support. You see in the stores now, Bioflex. I have an example of that over there too. So you can start taking that as well. But natural things to take, the fruit and vegetables, you can see we have like dark green vegetables like broccoli. We have that there, you can try that. Back in the 80s, there was also another book that came out called the Arthritis Cure. This was written by a medical doctor. I'm not sure who it's been. I wish I got more information for you before this night, but the big thing was the way you drink water in this book it talks about. They say that you should drink up to about 15 minutes before your meal. Drink as much water as you want. But then after you're done, after you eat, have a little water at your meal, just in case you feel like a little dry or something, you can kind of sip on it. But you don't want to drink water with your meal, because it dilutes your stomach acids, and it causes more, your body's not digesting the food like it should be. And not to drink water for about an hour after your meal. It takes about an hour for your stomach to digest it. So drink a lot of water, but up to about 15 minutes before your meal, sip a little bit during the meal, and don't drink for like an hour or so after. It's going to help your digestion. Yeah, people are taking all kinds of antacids now, and because they're diluting their own stomach acids and their body's creating more, so then they take an antacid and then just the cycle they just get into like that. And another thing in the book talks about is apple cider vinegar. You guys ever remember that? That was really popular back in the 80s, right? And it's still true. I don't understand the mechanism completely, but I am going to look into that more and more. But we have samples of that. We have little apple cider shots for you to take before you leave. And so you can try that, right? Knock yourself out with that, yeah. And so we have some of those, you can try that again. But actually, if you feel like, and I've seen it with patients, if you feel like, oh, I feel like my stomach, I need to take an antacid, try taking the apple cider, the vinegar, apple cider vinegar. It actually helps to bring acid into your stomach, and your body says, oh, I don't have to produce as much acid anymore. So instead of taking antacids, take a little vinegar, and it actually helps to calm that down. So
Just plain?
apple cider vinegar, yeah.
Just plain?
Yep.
Are you gonna
This is like, yeah, just plain.
Shot.
Yeah.
You can dilute it.
Yeah, I do with a little bit of water. Because for some people it might be very strong. But if you take it with just a little bit of water, I think that's what they did over here.
It is diluted here.
You guys want to just sip on
What are
that?
you talking, a tablespoon or?
Yep. Yeah, teaspoon, tablespoon, a little bit too. And then mix it with 8 ounces of water or something like that. The fruit is berries like blueberries and blackberries and raspberries and strawberries. Those are very good for bringing down inflammation into your body too. And citrus like oranges and grapefruits. And so we have a sample of that out there for you. And we have packets of glucosamine chondroitin supplements. A patient of mine, she works for a supplement company, a nutritional company, and she just said you can pass these out, people can take them, so you can start taking them if you want to take some home with you. And but if you want to just write your name so she can touch base and see how you're feeling after you start taking it. But my wife, she noticed a big difference whenever she takes those chondroitin and the glucosamine. And when she doesn't take it, like her needs it's almost like bone on bone, you know. And so when she doesn't take it, she feels it. But when she does take it, the nutrients get in there and it kind of Just lubricates the area.
Is it just glucosamine? There's nothing after like DE or anything like that?
No.
It's just plain glucosamine?
They might say glucosamine sulfate.
Or something like that?
Yeah, but it's
Actually,
typically,
didn't read it.
yeah.
It's
A lot
all
of
over.
times-
You're right.
You
I
can
see
buy it
all
everywhere.
Right.
Yep.
A lot of times you'll see glucosamine and chondroitin, and they might even have MSM, which is another.
That's what I was
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
That's what.
And then once again, it's another compound that they mix together. They found that when these work together, they all work to help keep the joints lubricated and moving properly, and
And it's
enhance
all
the
natural.
healing process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all natural, so just like good food. Yep. Is that good?
That's great, thank you, Dr. Lee. Did you guys get all that? Because we have a display out there, and there was a reason behind all of that. I want you to understand that. All right, very good. So that's talking about enhancing repair using the food and the environment that we have around us. So now I want to talk about making sure that we stop the progression. All right? We want to make sure that we're keeping our joints moving. This is where exercising daily helps. That's right, you do. That's right, you do. Now this is where swimming is great. We talked the entire time about the effect of gravity on these joints and the increased stress. Swimming is the top exercise you can do in a weightless environment. It helps because you can increase the circulation to the joints. You're moving the joints, but if you're moving them in water, you're not fighting gravity the whole time. You're also increasing the circulation because as you're moving these joints, you're getting the blood flow and the nutrients in there that you need to, all right? You also can strengthen the muscle. I'm sorry? It's a big tub, hot tub kind of thing, yeah.
As much water as I can handle.
Yeah, but even there, if you're in the tub and you're moving your legs, you're bringing your knees up, you're getting some range of motion in there. And some, you don't have to go into you don't have to go for a full swim, but if you wade into water where you're just belly button high, right? And that, you can now walk with your legs. You can get your knees up a little bit. You can go through, holding onto the side of the pool, you can kind of squat down a little bit, so now you're getting some movement in the knees and the hips and the ankles, right? So these are good activities. The water helps it to be in a non-weight bearing environment. That's where it helps out a lot. Great question. Yes,
How about muscle cramps? I get muscle cramps in my thighs.
in the thighs? Well, the first thing that I would, like Dr. Lou talked about, is water. Making sure that you get water. I find a lot of people, I'll use a quick example of a lady that we were taking care of. When she came in, everything hurt. And I mean everything. I mean, you could start at her toes and work up to her head, it all hurt. It was all sore. We started working with her, she was getting some changes, but they weren't moving as fast as they should have. We said, okay, how much water do you drink? She said, I don't drink water. So hold on, okay, wait.